Velma was a disaster for HBO Max. Mindy Kaling and the other creatives behind this project tried their very best to create a modern Scooby-Doo story, and it was hated. The scores for it were awful, the trailers were disliked into oblivion, and yet they're still doing a second season. But now, one of the show's creators has decided to come out and address the backlash and attack people who criticized it, saying, "We didn't take away the original content, and you guys never wanted to give our series a chance." I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So, starting with this Screen Rant article, we are not erasing the originals, HBO's Velma Backlash addressed by one of the show's creators. Now, I've had to talk about Velma a lot on the channel, and it was just an awful series. They didn't care what real Scooby-Doo fans wanted. No, they just tried to create something new and, of course, modern. And whenever we get modern takes on beloved franchises, 99% of the time they turn out to be awful. It says a few months after the show set the internet aflame, Charlie Grandy is weighing in on the backlash for Velma. Developed by Grandy with creative input from star and executive producer Mindy Kaling, the series acted as an adult-oriented origin story for the Scooby-Doo character navigating high school, a love quadrangle between the Mystery Inc. and the mystery of local teenage girls being murdered. Now, when I watched this, I tried to give it a chance, right? But it was just abysmal. It was just a genuinely bad series. They didn't go into it wanting to make this, as close to the Scooby-Doo series we know, but simply with adult humor. I mean, they didn't even have Scooby-Doo in this. All of the characters acted completely different, and none of them were well written, unfortunately. It just was a nightmare of a series, and they thought people were going to love it and watch it, and even though they tried to boast at the beginning about how it became, HBO Max's most viewed animated launch for the platform, we didn't hear any numbers after that, most likely because they had massive drops. It says in a special cover interview for the latest issue of Emmys magazine, Charlie opened up about the show's intense backlash. The creator recalled Warner Brothers' strong support of his and Kaling's subversive take on the iconic Scooby-Doo characters, and assured fans that their approach wasn't meant to replace the beloved original shows. The problem with saying this is the fact that all of the characters in the series, even though we know them, they were like mocking the original versions we knew. It's like they wanted to take those versions and basically crap on the image that we had of them, right? Fred had always been very kind of fashion savvy and full of himself, and while he was in this, it was blamed on like his white supremacy. The villain at the end was just pointless, and again, one of the only white people in the show. I mean, it wasn't a good series, and it did crap on the original Scooby-Doo fans who watched it. The original Hanna-Barbera shows are still out there to watch. We are not erasing the originals. We just want to be a little ice planet on the outer regions of the Scoobyverse. Mindy came to me and said she'd love to work on a story with Velma. She loved the character and thought it would be funny to have her at the center of a show. Yeah, we already knew that Mindy Kaling self-inserted her into Velma's role, and that is another major issue with it. Velma wasn't really Velma. It was just Mindy Kaling pretending to be, like a 15-year-old girl. It just didn't work, in my opinion. But this just shows kind of the current state of Hollywood. Oh, someone who is kind of well known, wants to work with this character. Oh, it doesn't matter if she has a history of writing. It doesn't matter if she's never, voiced animated characters before. It doesn't matter that she's never showed any interest in this franchise. Let's just give her the role. We asked ourselves, why stop at Velma being South Asian? None of these characters are rooted in being white. Oh, but of course, they left Fred white because he was filled with white privilege and toxic masculinity. I mean, the jokes make themselves here. Velma being South Asian wasn't the problem with this series. Yes, when you add that to the pile, it is part of the issue, but it wasn't the only issue. At its core, the series just wasn't good. The writing wasn't great. The animation was okay. It wasn't the best animation I've ever seen, but it was all right. The voice acting in a lot of instances wasn't good, and it was just a bad show. But of course, instead of just accepting the fact that people didn't like the content, they called anyone criticizing it racist and sexist and all of these different disgusting things. And people did retaliate. I mean, looking at Rotten Tomatoes, even the critics hated this series, and for all intents and purposes, they should have loved it, since it did have a lot of forced messaging. But the average critic score was a 40%, which is awful, but the average audience score was just a very, very low 7%, and it is funny to me because they put out a awful product and basically said, shut up, consume it, and wait for the next season to release, and everyone fought back against this show. They are doing a season 2 as far as we know. It was already greenlit a few months ago. It seems like when they signed for season 1, they also signed for season 2 at the same time. Maybe they'll end up canceling it silently, but I think the reason why this creator is coming out now and talking about it is because they are getting ready to ramp up the PR train for season 2. I feel like they'll probably end up releasing the second season in like August or September, so they're really trying to get some chatter about it now that it's been a couple of months since the first season and all of the backlash died down, but it just comes across as desperate for attention, desperate for maybe some extra clicks on your show, and just desperate to get your name out there. I don't think that there's any way that they can save Velma. I know I will not even give season 2 a chance. I gave season 1 a chance. I tried to sit through it. It was god-awful. I don't see them doing any better with the season 2, especially where instead of accepting the problems with the series and completely ignoring why people hated it, they are still going on about how people didn't give it a fair chance and, we weren't erasing the originals, but I feel like they're getting ready to ramp up the PR train for season 2, and that is the only reason why they are now addressing the backlash. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.